Hey everyone, I want to kick things off by sharing that my wife Isabella and I have been pretty fortunate when it comes to health. Our kid has only had chickenpox at age 4. There's a notable age gap between us. I'm 14 years her senior. It's just the way things unfolded, and I'll fill you in on that later. Right now, she's expecting our second child, who's already 6 months along. It all started when our son, Hudson, showed interest in entering a military-oriented gym. After discussing this with my wife, we decided, why not give it a try? But of course, this meant going through a lot of medical examinations and tests, including blood type determination. Since my pregnant wife definitely couldn't handle all the errands, I went to take care of them myself. One day, while collecting the test results, I decided to check Hudson's blood type out of sheer curiosity. I hadn't taken him to the doctor myself and had no idea what it was. Just for kicks, I compared our blood types, mine and my wife's. And to my dismay, I realized something alarming. Parents with our blood types shouldn't be able to have a child with his. What on earth? For a decade, she'd never given me a reason to doubt her, even as a joke. Jealousy wasn't my style, but here I was spiraling. I tried to brush it off, but it kept gnawing at me. That's when I decided to take a DNA test. The results were a punch to the gut. The likelihood of me being his father was just 0.1%. I spent 2 days walking around in a daze, completely unsure how to approach her. I was mentally rehearsing what to say. I didn't want to upset her. After all, she's pregnant, and the last thing I needed was to cause stress that could lead to complications. When I finally decided to deal with the problem, I put the DNA test results on the table as gently as I could, saying, "Come on, my girl." Fun fact, I rarely called her by her full name, usually just baby or something like that. Lately, I've been craving nothing but honesty, and that's been crucial to our future. She burst into tears, but I managed to calm her down quickly. Then she shared that it felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Apparently, she'd been carrying this secret for years and was probably relieved that I'd found out. She insisted that she loves me deeply and that after we got married, she never strayed. She had no affairs whatsoever. Still, she did confess that she didn't fall in love with me right away. In those early days of our relationship, she held me in high regard. I was her rock, her support, but she might not have fully grasped what true love was back then. She was young and admits she acted a bit foolishly. She insists that the baby she's expecting is undoubtedly mine. If I have any doubts, she's more than willing to take a DNA test herself, as soon as she's on maternity leave. Apparently, they can even do tests while the baby's still in the womb to prove it all to me. All right, I replied. We can revisit this later, but not now. For the moment, let's just assume I believe you. With that, she began to share her thoughts, and I found myself diving back into the routine of reminiscing about those past years. I was 32 when I ended things with my last common-law wife. No, there was no infidelity involved. Sometimes people simply grow weary of one another. The relationships I had back then rarely lasted long, and this one managed to hold on for a year and a half. We parted on good terms, no hard feelings, no children, nothing to argue about. Sure, it was a bit sad, but the sorrow only lasted long enough for a quick trip to the store and back. Then, out of the blue, my army buddy calls me up saying he's in town and it would be great to catch up. I was so excited that I think I startled the neighbors. We met up, hit the sauna, started off with a beer, and then moved on to something stronger. We reminisced about the hilarious moments from our army days and recalled all the old commanders. Our third toast was a heartfelt tribute to our fallen comrades. That's when his phone rang, and as he talked, he kept glancing over at me. He mentioned that he was actually in town to celebrate his nephew's coming of age. His sister lives here, and they'd love for us to join the celebration. At first, I hesitated. After all, they were strangers to me. But he convinced me to come along. When I finally saw the guest of honor, I was taken aback. A stunning girl with fiery hair, and the best part, it was all natural. During the celebration, my friend and I went out for a smoke. To my surprise, I noticed that the birthday girl was sitting alone in the kitchen, and tears were flowing down her cheeks. I asked her what happened. "What's bothering you?" She admitted that it was not easy for her at the age of 18. She had recently broken up with her boyfriend, and he didn't even send her a flower or a message. Well, I decided to use all my charm and humor, and after a minute, those tears dried up. Just 2 minutes later, she was giggling uncontrollably. When we returned to the party, she leaned over to whisper something to her mom, and they switched seats. Suddenly, she was right next to me. The other kids mostly danced with her, except for a quick waltz with her dad, while I had the honor of dancing with her future mother-in-law. Let me know if you'd like to tweak anything or if there are more things between us. Things took off quickly. We began dating, going out together, and before I knew it, she had moved in with me. Just a month later, a couple of days after that, we decided to head to the registry office to tie the knot. I had a business trip planned for a month, which I requested myself. I figured if I played my cards right, the earnings would cover the wedding, a little getaway, and maybe some gifts. Just enough to enjoy life a bit. On the day I was set to leave, we submitted our application. I surprised her with a stunning gold ring featuring an alexandrite as an engagement gift, and then I was off. Initially, we kept in touch. I was the one making most of the calls, but soon she started acting distant. You know those awkward moments like, "Hey, I see you called," or, "Oh, sorry, I can't chat right now." Sometimes she'd hang up or just wouldn't answer at all. I should have seen the red flags then. That's what I was banking on. You sly old dog. So I cut back on the calls. As luck would have it, the business trip turned out to be even better than I had anticipated. Not only did I make the expected amount, but I also snagged some MCE bonuses. As I was packing up to head home, just 3 days before the wedding, she called me for the first time in a month. She was the one reaching out. If a girl has been dodging you and suddenly calls, it's usually a sign that something's off. But to my surprise, she was in tears, professing her deep love for me, how much she missed me, and that everything for the wedding was set. The restaurant was booked, and her dress was arriving the next day. Then I blurted it out. No, I didn't want to mention it, but we're having a baby. Well, sure, we had an unforgettable night together before I left, and I might have dozed off on the train. But my joy knew no bounds. Then my whole family greeted me upon my return, and my buddy from the army came to stand by me as a witness at the wedding. She rushed up, threw her arms around me, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." Confused, I asked, "Sorry for what?" Instead of explaining, she said, "Let's just forget everything." I figured girls can be a bit quirky, so I went along with it. We took 3 days off for the wedding, enjoyed ourselves, and then began our new life together. Pregnancy and welcoming little Hudson. Now let me share the rest from my devoted wife's perspective. The moment I left for my trip, her boyfriend reappeared. He had all the classic lines, "I was such a fool, I messed up," and she fell for it. She decided to call off the wedding and go back to him, but didn't want to tell me over the phone. She figured it would be better to let me finish my business trip in peace and let me find out when I got back. So she packed her things, wrote me a heartfelt letter thanking me for everything and asking for forgiveness, placed it on the table with the ring on top, and moved in with her. They lived together for 2 weeks before she found out she was pregnant and broke the news to him. This jerk started pushing her to get an abortion, claiming he wasn't ready to be a dad and wasn't even sure the baby was his. But when she went to the clinic for a checkup, they informed her that if she went through with the abortion, and she'd never be able to have kids. And what do you think that scumbag said? What, now I'm supposed to raise your kid? Get an abortion or don't take the pills? But I'm not raising him. If you can't have kids, that's not my problem. We'll figure it out later. She threw his abortion money right in his face, packed up her things, and threw him to the curb forever. Then, she took the key to my apartment from her parents and returned to me. After putting on the ring, she tore up the note she had left and immediately called her mother. She insisted that everything related to the wedding be put back on track. Everything was still going on as usual. She was in a fog of dreams, and now it became clear why she was so affectionate when I returned. She tried to atone for her mistakes, but she made up a story that this child was mine, her husband's, that is, from me. I did a DNA test, and as soon as he got the results, he disappeared from our lives forever, never to be seen again. But it didn't make me feel any better. So let's fast forward to today. She claims that she will support any decision I make. although deep down she really wants to save our family and our love. She is overwhelmed with remorse. To be honest, I'm glad the truth came out. We decided to keep this between us for now, keeping it a secret. As for me, I have decided to consider Hudson my son. I will never be able to convince myself otherwise. He has my last name, and he will never hear the truth from me. Regarding Isabella, I haven't made a final decision yet. Let her give birth first, and then we'll figure things out. I'm already in my 50s, and she's just 28 and pregnant. It wouldn't feel right to walk away now, especially with a baby in the picture. While we're currently sleeping in separate rooms, she keeps trying to connect, always reaching out for hugs, even though I don't reciprocate. I'm not pushing her away either. It's tough, really tough. Cheating Secrets podcasts like me,